We're learning amid the huge crowds at the Raptors victory parade, a small baby went into medical distress and later died.
When you're dealing with a child that's in distress, it's one of the most stressful, dramatic incidents you could be involved in.
While the Toronto Police Union is saying the massive crowds made it hard for officials to help the infant. Plus,
he said, "Sorry, fellas, like right as the clock hits 6, I gotta take the rim down."
Too noisy to play? This viral video is making the city rethink its policy when it comes to taking down public basketball nets. And Crime Stoppers is taking its latest message to the streets to try to track down a wanted criminal. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. We're hearing some new safety concerns being raised about last week's Raptors parade after word a baby required urgent medical attention and died in a hospital a few days later. Tonight, the Toronto Police Union says massive crowds made it difficult for emergency crews to offer help. But as Angelina King tells us, organizers are refuting those claims.
As the celebrations took over downtown, a frantic and traumatic emergency took place along the parade route. A baby went into medical distress, and the head of the Toronto Police Union says police and paramedics had difficulty responding because of the crowds. Mike McCormick says officers gave the baby CPR and took the child to hospital in a police car.
When you're dealing with a child that's in distress, it's one of the most stressful, dramatic incidents you could be involved in on a normal day. When you compound that with the crowds, they were very distressed by it and very frustrated trying to get that child to the hospital to get the emergency care that they needed.
But organizers are disputing that account. A statement from the City of Toronto, Toronto Police Service, and MLSE says, in part, a radio call went out for a medical distress, and a nearby Toronto Police SUV with 2 Toronto Police Service employees, including an officer and a civilian, arrived and rushed the paramedics and the infant to hospital, arriving in 6 minutes. According to those involved, the baby was initially vital signs absent, however, regained vital signs that afternoon. The baby died 2 days later. The police union says hundreds of officers have raised concerns about the parade in general, saying there was a lack of resources and planning, and one woman who is still in hospital after being trampled echoes those concerns.
It was horribly planned. I'm very surprised.
Francesca Galati broke her tibia and collarbone after being trampled by a crowd following the shooting that injured 4 people. She says her friend called 911 and was put on hold, and says they waited about 40 minutes for an ambulance.
There wasn't enough thought on how to get to somebody if they're injured, because it just took so long.
Today, the police chief said officers at the parade did a fantastic job.
We had over 525 resources that were there. What you saw in the public was not all of the resources that we had that were available. There were issues of hydration and other factors. We're working with the city and other agencies to look at best practices.
Still, there are questions about a lack of barricades and water stations. This personal injury lawyer says if there are any legal actions, MLSE and the city would be responsible.
But we'd have to look at, did they take reasonable care in the planning and the running of the event to ensure that there was no unusual dangers, that they were not negligent, that what they did was reasonable in the circumstances. And that remains to be seen. The union and police chief are meeting tomorrow to discuss the concerns. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
A man is dead after a stabbing in Brampton tonight. Police got the call around 8:30 to Hanson Road North and Charters Road. That's near Kennedy Road North and Williams Parkway. Police took one man into custody. They say there's no immediate threat to public safety. They say the 2 men are known to each other but won't disclose the relationship between the 2. They've notified both Peel's Homicide Unit and its Missing Persons Bureau. A vehicle struck a woman late this afternoon near Lakeshore and 10th Street in Etobicoke. Police say she was unconscious and sent to hospital in serious condition. Lakeshore was briefly closed while police investigated. And with Canada Day long weekend approaching, the OPP is hoping to avoid a repeat of last year. 11 people died on provincial roads that weekend. Today, the OPP kicked off a safety blitz at the King City en route.
Aggressive driving is a huge issue for us, and because of what we've seen already this year, 21 people have died in aggressive or speeding related fatalities. that is the #1 killer right now across the province, aggressive or speeding. And there's no tolerance for that, and we want to make sure drivers understand the consequences for being in a hurry could be a lot more than a traffic ticket or an inconvenience. It could be a crash in a life.
Roads are expected to be busier than normal, so the OPP is reminding you to stay patient. In addition to aggressive and distracted driving, officers will be targeting impaired drivers on roads, trails, and waterways. Driving under the influence of cannabis or alcohol on the water carries the same penalties as on the road. And police arrested dozens of people connected to a nationwide drug trafficking gang in a series of early morning raids right across the GTA. Investigators say the raids targeted gangs that traffic fentanyl, one of the most powerful opioids responsible for overdose deaths on our streets. Magda Gebrselassie has the details.
These raids took place in Toronto, Hamilton, Peel, York Region, and the list goes on and on. Now, this was a result of an 8-month investigation called Project Kraken. The footage we're about to show you was provided by the Toronto Police Service. Under the cover of darkness, teams broke down doors with search warrants and arrest warrants for what they say is the Chester Lee gang. Police allege that this gang has criminal activity going on in Toronto and then right across the country as well. And we know that there were 37 arrests made. Guns and drugs were seized. Police also tell us that prior to this, 43 people were arrested during this investigation. So that brings the total to 80. Chief Mark Saunders does say that gang activity is increasing in urban areas. He talked about enforcement being just part of the solution. He also called for more core funding to programs that deter people from living a lifestyle like this.
To think that we're going to arrest our way out of this is ludicrous. It does not happen. It will not happen. And I'll say that until the end of my term. We have to take the appropriate steps from the front end to have the right decisions being made. We have to do our enforcement piece. But then at the back end, where we keep talking, 90% of people that we apprehend are going back into the public.
Now, Chief Saunders wouldn't give out too many details today. He did, however, say that 10 guns were seized during the raids. He said another 13 prior to that. As for, how many drugs were taken off the streets, we should know more about that tomorrow. That's when we're expecting to hear from the lead investigators of Project Kraken. Magda Gebrselassie, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy's here with the first look at the forecast. I wish today was a Saturday. It felt like great Saturday weather.
Didn't it? And probably starting to feel like a Saturday for the kids too, getting out of school, getting that feeling of having their summer vacation. Well, you know what? We'll take a look a little later in the show about Saturday and the whole weekend forecast in terms of what we're going to see for this long weekend. I do want you to know, though, for tomorrow, just in the short term, when we look at tomorrow afternoon, evening, we have a thunderstorm risk. We're talking about heat and humidity building tomorrow, so more humid tomorrow than today. And yes, promises, we will look at that. That'll just be a little bit later in the show. I want to show you what happens. So stop this, paused it at 1 p.m. tomorrow. So you can see the model projections wanting to bring in showers and thunderstorms, starting to develop those into cottage country around Georgian Bay, those easing into the early afternoon hours. And then it looks like later afternoon to evening pushing down towards the lower Great Lakes. So that's kind of the progression, then lingering into the evening. Overnight, Friday towards Saturday morning, we may still have a bit of cloud cover for Saturday morning, and then things are going to shape up and we get into more sunshine there. But really mild, that's running 7 degrees above seasonal, that overnight low of 20, and tomorrow afternoon 30. But boy, oh boy, Mike, feeling like 36.
Wow, thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
What are you going to miss the most about school this year?
Miss my teacher, friends, my teacher.
And why are you going to miss your teacher? Is she awesome?
Yeah, she's very nice and kind.
Probably playing soccer at recess.
My friends.
Yeah.
Math. My friends.
Well, the school year may be over, but the city is already working, if you can believe it, working on plans to keep children safe for next September. It's going to be installing photo radar cameras near 50 schools, trying to teach drivers to slow down. Our Natalie Nanowski tells us about one school that already has the cameras installed.
St. Paul's on Queen Street East was one of the schools that had a photo radar installed, and it was part of a pilot project that's part of Vision Zero to reduce pedestrian and cyclist death by 2021. Now, what the city did was it installed 8 cameras across Toronto, and the point was to catch people speeding, to see really how big the problem is. Here along Queen Street East, the fastest speed recorded was 127 kilometers an hour, but that is not even the worst. The worst, what the city found, was 202 kilometers an hour on Renforth Drive, followed by 156 on Wilson Avenue, and then 137 on Don Mills. Now, during this pilot project, there were no speeding tickets out. We did speak to the city's general manager on transportation services, and she says that it is really shocking anyone could reach those types of speeds on a city street.
Really, I don't even think the Autobahn has speeds that are that high. So it's certainly not an appropriate speed for an urban location, and certainly not a speed that is appropriate for a school zone. And especially in school zones where we have students and their parents that are traveling, a couple times a day during the bulk of the year. In the wintertime, it gets a little bit darker, there's rain, there's snow. We really need to take every effort that we can to make sure that those locations are safe.
The city says that now that the pilot project has wrapped up, it says that those photo radars really did work. When people did see how fast they were going on a screen, drivers generally slowed down. So the hope is now to have these photo radars installed all across the city by December 1st. In total, 50 of them are going to be put in. The city is going to determine the location, the exact location, based on data that they have. Now, once these are in place, there's also going to be a camera installed. So the city is going to snap a picture of your license plate if you're speeding, and then you're going to be sent a ticket. Natalie Nanowski, CBC News, Toronto.
I just threw at City of Toronto in the initial tweet just to see if it could get some eyeballs and maybe something would happen.
Well, this video of a City of Toronto worker taking down a basketball hoop at a city park early last night caught so much attention online, even the mayor noticed it. We'll have his response coming up. There are a lot of questions tonight surrounding the death of a 61-year-old man. He was found dead near York Mills in the DVP this morning.
Our officers are here right now. We're conducting a canvass for the apartments in the building to see if anybody heard anything. We're attempting to obtain the video for the building as well to see if that might provide us some information about what had happened.
The man is believed to have lived in the building. Police did not provide information about a suspect, but said there's no threat to public safety at this time. The call came into police this morning as a stabbing, but an autopsy is scheduled for tomorrow to determine the cause of death. Mayor Tory is calling a foul on how Toronto treats its basketball nets. He got involved after seeing a video online showing nets being taken down at a park near Jones and Danforth around 6 o'clock last night while there were still kids on the court hoping to play some ball. Greg Ross spoke with the man who first posted that clip on Twitter.
And he said, "Sorry, fellas, like right as the clock hits 6, I got to take the rim down."
That's when Mitch Robson grabbed his phone and started recording. He captured this video of a city worker removing the rim from the backboard. He then posted it on social media, unaware of just how much attention it was going to get.
I just threw at City of Toronto in the initial tweet just to see if it could get some eyeballs and maybe something would happen. And
it did.
Yeah, and then it did. As the night progressed on, Tory replied to my tweet and then quote tweeted it, sent it out.
The mayor then followed that up with this today.
I personally requested that the staff stop doing that. We're now going to go back and find out the answer to the question as to how many places in which this was happening.
The mayor says city staff were removing rims at parks where residents in the area had complained about noise, a policy that got this reaction from Raptors president Masai Ujiri when asked about it earlier this week.
There's been complaints about noise from basketballs. Yeah. Really? My first reaction is anywhere there's a basketball court is a good thing.
While the mayor says he respects residents' desire for peace and quiet, he says it's important to balance that with the necessity to provide kids with a safe place to play sports.
I opt in favor of positive, fun, healthy activities for kids in these neighborhoods, supported by the city leaving nets in place and, in fact, putting up more.
The mayor says the compromise is keeping courts open as long as there's daylight, which means residents near basketball courts can still get peace and quiet after dark. Robson says he can live with that. The mayor says that kids should be able to play as long as there's daylight. Is that a good compromise?
I think so, yeah. I mean, if you want to take them down at 10, 11 o'clock so you don't want people congregating at night, totally, that makes sense.
And it's not just the city that's making sure that these rims stay in place. The Toronto District School Board has also received similar noise complaints about their basketball courts. Well, today they announced that they're going to be keeping all of their rims in place as well. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, this man is wanted for attempted murder in connection with the playground shooting last year. Crime Stoppers is taking to the streets with a new method to try to track him down. We'll explain coming up.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
A man known online as Helmet Guy, accused of assault during a clash at Hamilton's Pride Parade, appeared in court for the first time today. Christopher Vanderweide is facing 2 counts of assault with a weapon. Now, online videos show a scuffle breaking out between Pride supporters and a group that showed up to the parade with homophobic signs. One video shows someone who looks like Vanderweide using a helmet to smash people in the face. He's being held until a bail hearing next week. Well, Toronto Police and Crime Stoppers are rolling out a new strategy, literally, as they try to find a man wanted for shooting up a playground where bullets struck 2 young girls. It happened a year ago. Taquan Robertson is still on the run. Police announced a $50,000 reward for information about him earlier this week. Now they're taking to the streets with another way to publicize his name. This roving digital billboard is now driving around the areas where investigators believe Robertson may be hiding out. Earlier today, my colleague Dwight Drummond spoke with the chair of Toronto's Crime Stoppers, Sean Sportum, about this unique guerrilla marketing campaign.
We are working with the Toronto Police Service in identified areas where we believe Taquan may frequent. The Malvern area is one of them. Flemington Park is another. And then the truck is just going to, patrol that area for a number of hours per day. And then to complement that, we've also purchased a number of billboards across the GTA where we're going to feature his wanted poster as well.
From an investigative standpoint, I know one of the suspects in the playground shooting was caught up by Algonquin Park. Is Crime Stoppers doing this because they believe this particular suspect is still in the city? Is that what we're hearing from investigators?
Yeah, so I mean, we're working with the investigators and understanding where he may frequent or reside. These are some of the areas. Through this campaign, we're hoping to generate a number of tips, and hopefully those tips lead us either to where he's at or where he might be frequenting, and then we'll reevaluate what we're doing from a marketing perspective and then redeploy resources into those areas to create more chatter in those areas and make it uncomfortable for him. I mean, what he needs to understand is that, the Toronto Police Service is looking for him. Now Crime Stoppers is looking for him, right? So we'll be able to, with that partnership, reach a greater audience in hopes of identifying where he's at and bringing him to justice.
ESPN is reporting tonight that when Kawhi Leonard meets with respective teams next week in Los Angeles, he'll let Toronto make the final presentation. It's a coveted spot, one last chance for the Raptors to convince him to stay with the team. Leonard is expected to decline his player option to become an unrestricted free agent. He's been spotted vacationing in Barbados recently, wearing a Blue Jays jersey. Colette is back with her extended forecast. For students, the weekend's already started, but for the rest of us, what's in store?
Yeah, we got to get a jump on this thing too and get the 2 months off. How do we figure that one out as well? Yeah, let's just go ahead. We'll talk about, first of all, the almanac, and that kind of gives you an idea in terms of the averages for daytime highs and lows, and that's what I want to bring your attention to for today. 25.3. 13.4, and our low tonight is going to be closer to 20 degrees, so running way above seasonal and a little above seasonal too for daytime highs. So we're looking at that whole 5 to 10 range above seasonal. And boy, oh boy, after the spring we've had, it's so nice to be running ahead of the game instead of always kind of the underdog below in terms of our temperatures. The outlook looks good, so clear tonight, quiet tomorrow morning, sunshine. Looks great. Then we start to get into the afternoon, and I've been mentioning this week how this was going to be coming in. So if it is a travel day for you, as it is for so many, just knowing that to the north of the GTA, up into cottage country, we're going to be seeing this earlier in the afternoon, likely some showers and thunderstorms rolling through. And then towards the later afternoon and evening coming down towards the GTA, some of those showers lingering into the evening and some of that residual cloud cover over into Saturday morning. That potentially is there as well, but what's nice is that then that is going to clear out of here, and so Saturday will shape up to be mostly sunny. It just may take a little bit of time in the morning to get to that place, okay? And in terms of the rainfall accumulations, I want you to know that, again, of course, if there's some thunderstorms locally, you could get some very heavy downpours, but otherwise, generally, we're looking at kind of 5 to about 15 millimeters and probably closer to that 10 millimeters for the city. Southwestern Ontario, heat there too, and more humidity. Because of that, with highs in the low 30s, lows in the low 20s, and that happening for 3 to 5 days, feeling like you're in the 40s. That's why the heat warning is there. Overnight tonight, a look at the temperatures in your region. There they are, 20 to 21 degrees. Southerly breeze into tomorrow, 31. Some scattered showers possible there, but the greater risk is actually further towards the east. Overnight for the GTA and those readings for tomorrow, the heat is on. Humidex 36, and a look at the rest of the weekend. So Saturday clearing out after the morning hours, 28. Sunday sunshine a little cooler. Also the humidity down a little bit Sunday, okay, 26. Monday 27, but just no late Monday now. The model's starting to bring in some showers, so that risk is there late Monday towards Monday night and into Tuesday as well. So that's important for fireworks. We'll be watching that carefully, Mike.
All right. Thanks a lot, Colette.
You're welcome.
"74 people participated in a special ceremony at the Bentway today. It started with a roundtable discussion on what it means to be Canadian, and it ended with a pledge as they were sworn in as new Canadian citizens.
Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
We started off the ceremony with 74 people from 23 different countries. And we end the ceremony with 74 people from one country. You now share in making Canada stronger and more vibrant.
I came from Nigeria. I came to Canada when I had my second son. I decided to stay because I felt it was a good place to raise my children with all the opportunities.
I feel great. As a Canadian citizen, just do my duty for this country. It's a diverse nation, so which embrace and accept people from different backgrounds, and I really feel proud to be a part of Canada.
And congratulations to them. Well, that's it for our newscast tonight. Talia Ricci will be here tomorrow night, so let me take this early chance to wish you a great Canada Day long weekend. Good night.